Namaste and Vanakkam and Swagatam to all of you out there, and welcoming you all to the 19th episode of Telling Me Appa, which has been quite a journey. As you know, we are on the 19th number. Well, today it's a very special occasion for all of us because it's Ammaji's birthday today, the 13th of September, so it's a very special day, and it's very nice that on this day we can do something. So we are doing the Tell Me Appa episodes that we have been doing every Sunday. So we have to send our gratitude, and we have to always pray for Ammaji's blessings for all of us so that we can always succeed in whatever way we choose to become in life, or whatever way we choose to follow in life, or whatever. So again, welcoming you all to the 19th episode of Tell Me Appa of season 2. So we are dealing with all these tales of different gods, and not just the gods, how we compare them and all that, and connecting them with us, and important things that we must know, the important aspects and how to lead a good life and all of that. So as I told you last week that we had the Vishnu, um, we had tales on Lord Vishnu, and we saw about the Dasavataram. So in that we had mentioned that we cannot just end just like that, and Rama and Krishna need a separate episode each because it's just they have quite a dense bunch of tales, I would say. So today we are here to know more about the tales of Ramavataram. So we will ask Dr. Sir to share his insights and different aspects of Rama, and hope you all will enjoy it as much as you did last week. So we'll get started. So maybe we should know initially who is Lord Rama, and what were some important must-knowing aspects that took place when he was existing during his phase of time and all that. So maybe we should know something about initially.
Yeah. So, welcome everyone to this episode. And as Divya rightly pointed out, Ammaji is celebrating her 77th birthday, and the living Siddha of Pondicherry, one of those most amazing women. And we are fortunate to be living on this planet at the same time that she is living on this planet. So, let us seek her blessings today, and let us always be worthy of her blessings. Lord Rama is considered one of the avatars of Mahavishnu, and he is said to be the Maryada Purusha, the perfect human being. And Lord Rama, the story of Rama, the Ramavatara, comes to us mainly through Valmiki. The Valmiki, who was a rishi, who gives us the Ramayana. And then there have been so many versions in so many languages, including the most famous one of Tulasidas in Hindi, the version he gave in Hindi, and then the Kamba Ramayana by the great Mahakavi Kamban, who has given the Tamil version. And we have had the opportunity at Yoganjali to do dance dramas on this story twice, as Kamba Ramayanam and then as Ramavataram, because Kamban uses the term Ramavataram as his title. In fact, it is very interesting how the Ramayana came into being, because Valmiki, he was a highway robber, a highwayman, and used to rob people, kill people, and steal those who were going through the forest where he was living. And he was called Ratnakara. And once he tried to rob the Sapta Rishis, and they said, we have nothing. So they said, well, you are doing all of this, who are you doing it for? So he said, for my family, my wife, my kid, and all. They said, you are accumulating so much papa, negative karma. Will they share that negative karma with you? And he said, yes. They said, go and ask them. He went back to his family and said, you are sharing all the stuff I bring after robbing people. Will you share the karma, the papa also? And they say, of course not. And this so awakens him. He comes back to the Sapta Rishis and says, what can I do? So they say, you can do a mantra japa. Mantra japa is so powerful. And they say, you do this mantra japa, and they teach him the Taraka mantra of Rama. Rama as a Maha mantra is the Taraka mantra, And when the Rama Japa is done, it has to be started in reverse. So it starts as Ma Ra. Ma Rama Rama. So you start with the Ma. Ma Rama 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 Rama. And Ratnakara starts chanting this. The rishis go on the way. Many years later, they come back and they find an ant hill. A termites have built the ant hill. And from that, they find the sound coming out. Rama, 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 Rama. And this, they realize is this Ratnakara who was kept inside. Now, this ant hill is called Valmiki. And they say, arise, O Valmiki. And he comes out of the ant hill and he gets the name Valmiki. So Valmiki gives us this Ramayana as a story of Lord Rama, who is one of the incarnations of Lord Mahavishnu. And Rama is incarnated. He is born for the purpose of creating what is called Rama Rajya, the noble rule of Dharma. He fulfills the Dharma, so Rama Rajya as a Dharma Marga by the king himself. And the purpose is to destroy Ravana, the king of Lanka who has 10 heads. And so the story is built on this, and Rama is born to his father is Dasharatha, who is said to have the capacity to ride 10 ratha, 10 chariot at the same time. Dasharatha is someone who is capable of riding 10 chariots at the same time, but metaphorically also means the 5 chariots or the 5 jnana indriyas and the 5 chariots or the 5 karma indriyas, and that through the manas, which is the ekendriya, the 11th sense, he is controlling all these 10. So it is also metaphorically that Dasharatha had that, Dasharatha had that type of capacity. Now Dasharatha has 4 queens and 3 queens, and they have 4 kids, of which Kausalya, Supraja, Ramachandra, Rama is born to this Raghuvamsa, the solar dynasty, Ikabashku. And what happens is that the story goes, because see, ultimately Rama is not born to just be another king. He is born to destroy Ravana. So there has to be a lot of catalyst. And so Kaikeyi, who is then prodded by her Kuni, Mandari, is sort of getting Dasharatha to exile Lord Rama for 14 years. Again, 14 is the number of the lokas, 7 higher, 7 lower. Yeru Bhuvanangal, as is sung in Yennatavam Seidane. The 14 is a very significant number because you find it with the Pandavas also in Mahabharata, you find it in the Ramayana also, this 14. So, Rama has to go into exile. No use in blaming Kaikeyi, no use in blaming Dasharatha. And so Rama goes into exile, and naturally Sita has to be kidnapped by Ravana, and then the battle has to happen for Rama to destroy Ravana. But along the way, Rama teaches us a lot of lessons. One is that he goes to the forest to safeguard his father's promise. His father has made the promise, and to safeguard that, he sacrifices his well-being, the crown, to go to the forest for the sake of honoring his father's promise. This is one of the very important aspects that Rama teaches us. The second aspect is that we say that Rama is of one wife, one bow, one aim, oka mata, oka banamu, as Tyagaraja Swamigal sings in his Kriti. So this oneness is the one-focused dharana that Rama has. He stands up for virtue, for dharma at all times. And another beautiful thing I like about Rama is that he accepts as a brother different people of different strata of society. He comes from the Kshatriya Kula, the warrior, kingly clan. Yet, he takes Gugan. Guga is from the boatman. He is a low boatman, and who takes them across the river. He takes Guga as a brother. He already has Bharata, Shatrughna and Lakshmana. So Lakshmana is the incarnation of Adi Shesha, Sheshnag, whereas Bharata Shatrughna of the Shankha and the Chakra. This is the
So
concept that we
Lakshmana
have.
had more to do with Rama? Or
Yes. And in fact, Lakshmana is sort of, if Rama is the sun, Lakshmana is the moon. They go together. You always find Rama and Lakshmana going together because even when Sita was not with them, was taken away by Ravana, Rama and Lakshmana were together. That is why when Lakshmana is killed on the battlefield by Indrajit, Rama actually is really in a struggle at that point because without Lakshmana there's no life actually. And that is where Hanumanji, Anjaneya goes and brings the Sanjeevi Malai and brings it to save Lakshmana, who has died on the battlefield and is brought back to life. We'll talk more about that when we talk about Lord Hanuman. Beautiful stories of Hanuman. So, Gugan, who is a low boatman of the very low strata of society, is accepted as a brother. Similarly, he accepts Sugriva, who is of the monkey clan. And the monkey clan, Sugriva, is accepted as a brother. And finally, he accepts Vibhishana, who belongs to the Asura clan.
He is the brother of Ravana.
Brother of Ravana, the enemy camp. He accepts Vibhishana, and in fact the song goes, with you we have become 7. The 4 brothers plus Gugan plus Sugriva plus Vibhishana or Vedanan according to the Kamba Ramayana. This is a very beautiful quality because this is what in that song Shri Raghukula Nayaka, in that I got Guganu Sugrivanum Vedanum Magilave Adarikum Karangala Lanaitu Magildai Guganum Sugrivanum Vedanum Magilave Adarikum Karangala Lanaitu Magildai. See, that is the thing, that he is open-hearted and accepts all of them. No divisions. People are always talking about human-made divisions. But Rama shows there are no divisions. It is a heart-to-heart connection. Now, there is a beautiful story in the Ramayana, again of a point where Ravana has lost his chariot. He's lost everything. And Rama actually says, you now don't have a chariot to fight with me. And we have to fight as king to king. And he says, Indu poi nalaiva. He actually tells Ravana, instead of killing him, this is the difference between Arjuna and Krishna killing Karna in the Mahabharata, as opposed to Rama, who was nobility, and he actually tells Ravana, he says, Indu poi nalaiva, go and come tomorrow, we will fight as equals. And that is why Tyagaraja Swamigal in another Kirtana, he talks of this. Sarasa Samadhanam Vedadanda Chature Sarasa Samadhanam Vedadanda Chature Sadi Deva Mevare Rovare Sarasa Samadhanam. Because the 4 aspects, Samadhana Vedadanda, Samadhana Vedadanda are the 4 methodologies that a king should use. You treat people as equal, sama. When they are not equal, you give them dana. When you find that the enemy is very strong, you take them apart, veda. And final stage is danda, punishment. So Rama deals with people at sama, dana, veda, danda, all the 4. And he has mastered sarasa, the very beautiful, sacred and high aspects of samadhana, veda, danda. Sarasa Samadhanam Vedadanda Chadura Sadi Deva Mevare Govave. Tyagaraja Swamigal sings that way. Another beautiful aspect, so here you look at it, one is he has his kingly brothers. The lowest aspect of human society, he has a brother. The monkey society, which means the subhuman. And then he also has in the devils, the Asuras. Imagine the great heart of Lord Rama. That is why it is said the Rama mantra is Taraka mantra. It takes you to cross samskara. The samskara which is there, the samsara, which is due to the samskaras, the samsara which is there, the illusionary world. When you want to transcend it, you need the Taraka mantra. Taraka as again Tyagaraja sings. Taraka Rama. And this Rama mantra is so powerful. You see, Valmiki got transformed and gave us the Ramayana. It is such a powerful mantra that when Rama is at the Rameshwaram, down at Dhanush Kodi in Rameshwaram, they want to build this Rama Setu to cross to Sri Lanka to save Sita. And they are building the bridge. Now, some years ago, we had a big controversy because the government wanted to break this bridge, Rama Setu, to make a Setu Samudram project. And at that time, Subramanya Swami went to court, and actually because of him, they still have the Rama Setu. And a prominent politician even went to the extent of asking, in which engineering college did Rama study? Which is, it just tells you the level that the atheists in Tamil Nadu have sunk to when they ask questions like that. But anyway, this bridge is being built, and all the monkeys, the bears, everybody is throwing rocks and sand to build. And there's a small squirrel, a beautiful anil. A very beautiful squirrel. And what the squirrel does is it goes, lies down in the sand, comes and it shakes the sand off. Again it goes, lies down, and on its body it is bringing the sand, little sand that sticks to it on its body to make that bridge. And all the monkeys, all the other army, they start laughing and look at this funny squirrel. Rama actually takes the squirrel and says, "Thank you for helping me." And it is said Rama pets that squirrel. And when he pets that squirrel, the 3 lines on the squirrels in South India are because of Rama's blessing to the squirrel. He teaches us. What does Rama teach us? Even the smallest of efforts by the smallest of people, you must value it as a leader. A leader is one who values the efforts, however small or large they may be, by each individual and builds the team. That is why Rama shows us the team spirit, the leadership quality of recognizing even the smallest of members in your team who is doing their best. Do your best, leave the rest. Rama recognizes that. There are a lot of these type of stories, and there's a very beautiful concept when we did the Kamba Ramayana. Because for Kamban, very clearly, Valmiki Rama is still a human being. But when you think of Kamban, Rama is definitely Lord Vishnu, he's a god. And he has a beautiful song where Rama and Sita meet each other for the first time. And Rama has come, he just, killed Tadakai, and Vishwamitra is very happy, and so he is being brought to Mithila. And in Mithila, what happens is that he sees Sita. He's come for the Swayamvara. They have to lift Shiva's big bow. And then Parasurama gets mad at him because he's broken that bow. He breaks the bow and wins the hand of Sita in the Swayamvara. But before that, there is this beautiful story where Sita's in the balcony and Rama's walking down and their eyes meet for the first time. And Kamban, so beautifully, he talks about that. He says, Annalum nokinan, avalum nokinan, Annalum nokinan, avalum nokinan. Rama is looking at her, she is looking at him. And in that he makes a beautiful statement. Pirindava koodinal pesal vendumo. Those who were separated, Rama and Sita, who are Mahavishnu and Mahalakshmi, they got separated in the Palkadal, the Milky Way. Now when they got separated, the Milky Way became the dark hole, the black hole. The Milky Way became the black hole. Palkadal becomes Karunkadal in the absence of Vishnu and Lakshmi Devi. And that is why he says, Karunkadal Palliyal Tirindava Koodinal Pesal Vendumo. Do they even need to say any words when they come together once again? Beautiful poetry from Kamban when he talks about this. It really gets deep into it. And the other day I was thinking about it because someone was saying, Sulpanaka, the sister of Ravana, she falls in desire with Rama. And then when she realizes Rama is married to Sita, tries to harm Sita, and Lakshmana cuts off her ears and nose. She complains to Ravana and then makes this big story that I wanted to bring Sita for you, which was not her aim. And then the Ramayana, the battle starts because he then kidnaps Sita. But at the end of the Ramayana, there is a scene where Mandodari is Ravana's wife. When Ravana is lying dead, she comes and cries and she says, that Lakshmana who cut off the nose and ears of Shurpanaka, shouldn't he have cut off the tongue? Because if he had cut off the tongue of Shurpanaka, she would not have come and told anything to Ravana. This whole issue would not have happened. Because Ravana is a great king in his own right. And the stepbrother of Kubera, who was the original ruler of Sri Lanka, of Lanka. And an amazing place. A great bhakta of Shiva, who played the veena, who used his own nerves to play the veena and, entrance Lord Shiva with his music. But Ravana, this desire, the kama, one of the shatripus that then leads to krodha, lobha, moha, and all of this that then leads to the destruction, as the Bhagavad Gita tells us. How the destruction, Tranashchayati, occurs because of that, and then Rama has to come in. There are many beautiful stories associated with Rama in this way. And I think, one thing which I really liked, I remember some time back, you sang the Niyavepai.
Yes.
It's a very beautiful composition that Adiyar Lakshman sir taught to Ammaji. And I remember Ammaji danced it many times. In fact, last night you were showing me an image of Ammaji with the bow and arrow from the 1989 conference Swamiji organized, where Ammaji danced that. Ni Urepai Hanumane. And it's a beautiful, heartfelt connection of Rama and Hanuman, where Rama is sending Hanuman to go and find Sita. And he says, when you go to see Sita, she may not know who you are. She may get scared by you. You are a monkey. Suddenly you are appearing in front of her. How will she trust you? So please tell her. Please tell her these stories. And he tells these beautiful personal stories that only he and Sita know about. And that is how he gives the identification. Ni Urepai Hanumane Nan Sonnalaga Unnai Yaranarina Vidal Shri Raghavandhu Tanendreni. In that, he says, when I was going to go to the Kodumkad, the very, very terrible forest, I told you don't come. Yet you cried at that time. And seeing those tears of yours, I took you with me. This was one identification story. The second is the story of Tadakai. How when Vishwamitra takes them, Muni Urthan Yasike, they went Pinchendru Tadagai. How the Tadagai was destroyed. He tells that, reminder of that. And then, Manai Pede Tenvasom Tarumendre Niyurai Tadinale Vanda Vinaidan Yendre Niyurai Tadinale Vanda Vinaidan Yendre Ni Urepai Hanumane Nan Sonnalaga Unnai Yaranarina Vidal Shri Raghavandhu Tanendresam Sari Sani Sani Pani Kamargarisa. Ni sa re sa ma re pa ma ni pa sa ni re sa re sa ni pa ma re ga re sa. Ni sa re sa ma re pa ma ni pa sa re ga re sa ni pa sa ni pa da ni pa ma re ga re sa re ma pa ni. Such a beautiful composition. And each of those lines, when he talks about Kodum Kad Nadandu, Kannada, it will be there. Raga Kannada will be there. When he talks about Muni Oruthan Yasika, Tanyasi Raga, it will be there. Mani Pidithen Vasanta will be the Ragam. And Sri Ragavan, so Sri Raga. Very beautiful composition that comes from the Kalakshetra tradition, Bani, taught by Lakshman sir to Ammaji, and so many of us have performed and done that. Such a beautiful concept of Rama, because Rama as that noble human being. In the evolutionary journey, you need to have that nobility. And it is very beautiful because along with Rama, you have so many stories that come. For example, the story of Lakshmana getting a boon. Lakshmana gets a boon that he says, when I'm going with Rama and Sita to the forest for 14 years, I have to take care of them. I have to keep them safe. So he says, I request the goddess of sleep that I shouldn't sleep for 14 years. He says, before they go to the forest. He actually invokes, not you, Mr. Crow. And you see, even crows come to our sessions. They come to the morning sessions and they come to the afternoon sessions and now tell me Appa also. Right?
It's like coming. How Rama accepted all of them. You are accepting monkeys, crows, and we had a peacock.
Yeah.
Of course, have
and
our dogs.
Even here we have Bhumi here who makes sure that she is part of this session under the camera. See, so Lakshmana, the stories of Lakshmana that go with it. Again, Rama is not just about Rama. You get the beautiful quality of Lakshmana. And Lakshmana says, I want to be with Rama and Sita and protect them. So he asks the goddess of sleep, for 14 years I don't want to sleep. So they say, somebody has to sleep your quota. So his wife Urmila, who stays back, she takes his quota and she sleeps, Lakshmana sleeps during that 14 years. Many people don't know this story. Urmila, who was the wife of Lakshmana, and someone who was unsung in all these stories, who said, so that my husband can protect Rama and Sita, she takes that sleep, which means that in addition to her sleep, she would have been sleeping his sleep also. You can imagine how much she had to sleep for 14 years. Another very interesting person who comes out is Bharata. Bharata, whose younger brother, whose mother Kaikeyi chases Rama to the forest and says, I got you the kingdom. And he nearly kills his mother. He says, Rama should be the king. So he goes to meet Rama, brings back Rama's Paduka. And for those 14 years that Rama is not there, the Padukas are kept as the ruler, and with the Padukas on the Simhasana, Bharata rules the kingdom. See, these are beautiful aspects that Rama's nobility comes on to others also. His nobility is not left to him, comes on to others to such an extent that even Vibhishana, who belongs to the opposite camp, comes to his camp. This is why Rama is such an amazing character when we think about, all these stories as nobility personified. Of course, there's always the criticism of Rama, two criticisms. And when we talk about Rama, we have to accept there are two criticisms. One, at the end of the Ramayana, Sita is brought from the Ashokavana. And at that time, she is made to go through the Agni Pariksha. So she has to go through the Agni Pariksha because Rama says, you have been in somebody else's house for so many years. I may accept you, how will society accept you? And she goes through it because she is taken care of by her mother, Bhumi Devi. And she comes out victorious, which is where this term Agni Pariksha comes in. Another term associated with Sita is Lakshman Rekha. Because she's in the hut, Lakshmana says, stay inside this line, you'll be protected. Ravana comes as a mendicant and persuades Sita to step over the line when she gets kidnapped. So we have these terms in India, we say, he or she has crossed the Lakshman Rekha. He or she has gone through Agni Pariksha. These are common terms in our day-to-day life that have come from the Ramayana.
Is it also that when people like give you something, and if you are like near the threshold or maybe inside or they are outside, that either you have to come out and give it to them or they have to come in and get it.
Yes, the influences of that. That there has to be, you cannot be in the mid place.
Yes, you cannot stand.
Again, that is more related to Narasimha Avatar because Narasimha is in the threshold.
Yeah, that's also there.
So Lakshman Rekha, the second is Agni Pariksha. And there are some versions where they say that at that point, after the Agni Pariksha, that Bhuma Devi comes and takes Sita away. That is one version. The second is they come back to Ayodhya and then again she's pregnant with twins. And at that time, again, a washerman is found talking that, I would not, if my wife was living with somebody else, I would not let her come back to me. And look at our king, Sita came back, blah, 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 blah. And so again, Rama sends Sita, who is pregnant with twins, to the forest. To whose hermitage? Valmiki's hermitage. So Valmiki writes the story, but he is also part of the story. Same thing in Mahabharata. Vyasa writes the story, but Vyasa is one of the most important characters of the Mahabharata also. So Valmiki becomes a character of this last part, which many people say, is it part of it or not? But Valmiki is part of it. And so the sending of a pregnant wife to the forest is again taken against Rama. But in the perspective of kingly dharma, fulfilling Rama Rajya and kingly dharma, he had to put public interest over personal interest. That is how it is explained. We may or may not accept it, that's a different issue. But then comes the beautiful aspect because Lava Kusha are born in Valmiki's hermitage. They learn to sing the Ramayana. And there is a point where Rama is going to do the Ashwamedha Yajna. All these kings used to do it. Yudhishthira also did it. Whenever they would take a horse, the horse would roam around the world. Wherever that horse went, became that king's kingdom, territory. And so the other king who wanted to challenge would challenge and they would have a battle. And like that, you win over the whole world. So if you can successfully complete an Ashwamedha Yajna, you are the emperor of the whole world. So Rama starts to do this. And there they say you have to have your wife by you. Now his wife is not there, she is in the forest. So someone actually puts a golden statue of Sita Devi there. Again, this is a very funny thing that we often find when in modern times people cannot be where they should. The Pandits will find these type of, loopholes. So they said, yes, put the golden statue instead of Sita Devi. But the funny part, this horse is left loose and in the forest, Lava Kusha capture the horse. They don't know who Rama is, but they capture the horse. And so each of the armies go, Lava and Kusha, they keep on defeating them. Bharata goes, Lakshmana goes, everybody loses. Even Hanuman goes and Hanuman gets tied up by these guys. Imagine that great Hanuman who could set fire to Lanka, that great Hanuman who could sit on his tail, create a chair and, taunt Ravana. That Hanuman is tied up by these young boys. Because who are they? Sons of Lord Rama. And then finally Rama has to come. And then he realizes who they are. And then the story goes, he invites Sita Devi back to the kingdom. But she says, I will not come. And then she calls upon Bhuma Devi and goes into the earth. So maybe there was an earthquake and she went in. And Lava and Kusha go back with Rama. The story then goes on and Rama ends his life in the river with Lakshmana and others. And the Avatara ends. Rama is not just about killing Ravana because he kills Ravana. The day he kills Ravana is Dashara. It is part of our celebrations that come up. Navaratri and Vijayadasami, Dashara. And then After killing, they come back to Ayodhya. That becomes Diwali. So you can see how the whole Indian cultural ethos, terms we use, phrases we use, concepts we use are based on this foundation. And this is why I must point out these modern scholars, the so-called scholars who try to say, did Rama exist or not? Which century did Rama exist? And they try to, bring it down to such nitty-gritty. These idiots, educated idiots, pada, lika, unpad, padicha mundam we call them, educated idiots are doing such a disservice. Because these cultural concepts are way beyond the concept of time we have now. Because Rama was part of Treta Yuga. Krishna is part of Dwapara Yuga. Krishna, the first day of the Mahabharata is where Kali Yuga starts. We are 5,000 years into Kali Yuga by our Indian calendar. And you have these idiots trying to tell you Rama existed just a couple of 100 years before Christ. What idiots they are. And this is why we have had issues like the Rama Janmabhoomi and why it has been really taken to the heart by devout Hindus is not just because of Rama Janmabhoomi. Was Rama born there? And as some idiot in our political spectrum said, where is his birth certificate saying he was born in Ayodhya? What idiots we have. So I think, we need to take this so-called logical nonsense that we bring into it. And we have to expand to understand the concept of time as cyclic, multiple dimensions that we are not capable of understanding. And recently, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji laid the foundation stone for the Rama Janmabhoomi temple that will be there. And lot of controversy. I accept there are controversies, but there is something called a cultural ethos. There is something called how the culture, the concept of Rama is bigger than the person Rama. The concept of Rama is bigger. The cultural connotations are bigger. And I think this is why Rama plays such an important component of Indian cultural ethos, our consciousness. And in Kamli Swami Madam, we have a beautiful statue which was made where Rama and Lakshmana, they are worshipping a Shiva Lingam down at Rameshwaram. Rama Ishwaram, the Ishwara who was worshipped by Rama, and there's a Shiva temple at Rameshwaram. And a very beautiful mural that was there. Now it's just above Swamiji's Samadhi. And I remember as a kid seeing that being made. Beautiful cultural connotations, Lord Rama, Goddess Sita, Lakshmana, Bharata, Hanuman, the stories associated with Vali, Sugriva, stories associated because of Shurpanaka, Maricha, who comes as the deer, the killing of Tadagai. All of these stories. And as I said, the cultural oneness that Rama brings to all aspects of society, accepting everybody as they are and bringing them all into his warm embrace. And I think one of the most iconic picture is of Rama hugging Hanuman. This is one of the most iconic pictures in Indian culture. And these are so much part of the culture that we shouldn't just make them comic book stories. I think one of the issues we have is the moment comic books came, we started to equate Mickey Mouse with Ganesha, and Donald Duck with Rama and Krishna. I think we have to come out of that, this so-called modern education that has totally stupefied our capacity to understand the bigger concept. I think we need to regain it, understand these cultural concepts, understand there are a lot of metaphors in it. And the beauty of the poetry, the beauty of the Valmiki Ramayana, the beauty of Kamba Ramayana, I tell you, it is so amazing. The way he talks about Kumbhakarna being woken up. And such a beautiful thing. Gajanan sir was Kumbhakarna for that. Your mother played Rama in one of the Rama Avataras, and then in the other, Lakshmi played it. Such beautiful concepts, such beautiful concepts. I think it is very, very wonderful that through this Tell Me Appa, we are able to share these concepts because many of the young kids, they don't understand it, they don't know it. And we need to understand our culture. Understand that, don't put it into the modern Western so-called scientific analytical time frame. The modern yoga scholars, the modern scholars of history, these modern historians, send them on a one-way ticket to Mars or Pluto or someplace. These people don't understand the disservice they are doing in demeaning the cultural ethos. The cultural ethos is the soul of Bharat Desh. The soul of India is the cultural ethos, and we must not lose it.
Okay, so maybe we could end with maybe a small song for Rama because we
Yes.
didn't sing a mantra for. Because I don't think we have a specific.
Well, you can create, Gayatri mantras can be created for every deity.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
in our, when we
Normal-
are chanting it.
Normal
for
chanting we
Agni,
don't have. For the
have.
Vishnu we have the Narayana,
Yes.
but
Maybe a short song or maybe like your favorite song. And mostly, I would say that they are composed by Tyagaraja, right?
lot of them
There are
Tyagaraja.
many slokams also for Lord Rama that we have been learning in the main intensive and all of that.
I think Kamban has a very beautiful one where he talks about the Rama Nama. And he says, Nanmayum Chelvamum Nalum Nalgume Nanmayum Chelvamum Nalum Nalgume Tinmayum Pavamum Sidaindu Teyume ஜென்மமும் மரணமும் இன்றி தீருமே ஜென்மமும் மரணமும் இன்றி தீருமே இம்மையே ராமா ராமா என்ற இரண்டெழுத்தினாலே நன்மையும் செல்வமும் நாளும் நல்குமே தின்மையும் பாபமும் சிதைந்து தேயுமே ஜென்மமும் மரணமும் இன்றி தேயுமே ராமா என்ற இரண்டெழுத்தினாலே தின்மையும் பாபமும் சிதைந்து தேயுமே ஜன்மமும் மரணமும் இன்றி தேயுமே நன்மையும் செல்வமும் நாளும் நல்குமே ராம என்ற இரண்டெழுத்தினாலே. The beautiful effect of the power that is there in that two syllable Rama, Nanmayum Selvamum, all that which is good, all the benefits of the material world, may they come to you. All the suffering may it be dissipated. Birth and death, you can transcend it through those two syllables, Rama. Kamba Ramayana, Kamban tells us this. Such beautiful concepts that are there. Of course, we have the Raghupati Raghava as the bhajan that Gandhiji loved so much, of course. And anything else that you have? Any favorites that?
Well, yeah, Raghupati Raghava has been quite special because we have like grown up singing it a lot.
So much, I think you and especially your brother.
Yeah, he really liked it, and that was the only bhajan that he would sing at one time.
Often I remember whenever he went out before Satsanga, the kids used to sing for the students. And always whenever you heard Anand Rai singing, it would be Raghupati Raghava. Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram Patita Pavana Sitaram. Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram Patita Pavana Sitaram.
Sitaram,
Sitaram
प्यारे मन सीताराम
सीताराम सीताराम
भज प्यारे मन
सीताराम
रघुपति राघव
राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान ईश्वर अल्लाह
तेरो नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान
ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान भज मन प्यारे राम हरे भज मन प्यारे सीता है भज मन प्यारे राम हरे भज मन प्यारे कृष्ण हरे भज मन प्यारे राम हरे भज मन प्यारे कृष्ण हरे भज मन प्यारे राम हरे भज मन प्यारे कृष्ण हरे रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम पतित पावन सीताराम पतित पावन सीताराम. Beautiful bhajan that really strikes the heart. Rama, such a beautiful Taraka mantra. And the concept is when Tyagaraja Swamigal, he used to worship the Rama idol, and his brother got mad at him and threw it away into the water. And Tyagaraja Swamigal really went mad. He where's my Rama? Where's my Rama? And after many days, he finds the idol on the banks of the river, and he sings, Kanu Kuntini Shri Ramunike. Beautiful song. Yeah? And just imagine the connection that would have been there. Similarly, it is said Rama and Lakshmana protected Tyagaraja Swamigal when a band of robbers came to rob them. And later on, when those robbers were asked what happened, they said there were these two amazing young men with bow and arrow, and they came and they fought us and we ran away. And such beautiful concepts. And for Tyagaraja Swamigal, Rama was a living entity. Rama was a living entity, and that is why those kritis on Rama by Tyagaraja Swamigal. Jagadananda Karaka Jaya Janaki Prana Nayaka Jagadananda Karaka. Such beautiful emotions come when Tyagaraja Swamigal sings to Lord Rama. So I think we have gone quite long today, in fact. But Ramavatara, I have not even told you the full story, okay? I've just given you bits of it because for me, we all know the story. But the most important lessons, how to be a noble human being, Homo nobilis. I think that's what we get from the Ramavatara more than anything else.
So yes, so we are concluding and we'll be back next week. And next week we will be having tales on Krishna. So do look out of it. The mischievous, we'll see all the sides of Krishna because Krishna wasn't only naughty. He was loved by all, and also, he would always be there with the right people. So always he would support the right people. So we should try to be right and good always so that we can have the support from the gods. So hope you enjoyed this. episode on Tales of Rama. Next week we'll be back with Krishna, and there are more to come. So don't think it's going to end. We will cover as much as possible, and there has been requests for Shiva, Hanuman especially. So we will be having separate episodes for all of that. So thank you for being there and for being you. And join us on the wonderful Wednesdays, Twinkling Thursdays, and Scintillating Saturdays. And on Tuesday, we are starting the psychic neurology.
Psychic neurology.
I somehow don't get that name, I don't know why.
And then in October, 2nd of October, we'll inaugurate the 52 lesson online program. The first session will be on October 4th. But October 2nd, we have always started the 6-month training.
That's
and so
Gandhi
this year,
Jayanti. So
on Gandhi Jayanti, we'll have the inauguration of that program also. So join us and let's all have a wonderful time together. Just remember, sharing is caring. So keep sharing. Namaste.